Ronald Reagan, arguably one of the greatest presidents in U.S. history. Yeah, that's right. He's up there with Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, Jackson, and of course, Donald Trump himself. But in Canada, he's very popular these days. In fact, if you're not using him for propaganda against the American people, perhaps you're using him to steal jokes from. Ladies and gents, welcome back. Hit that like button on the way in. And if you're new here, my name is Clyde. Welcome to the show. The subscribe button is just down there, so go hit that at your leisure. Let's just get into this story. Now, Pierre Poilievre is the leader of the Conservative Party and the official leader of the opposition in Canada. He's known for giving speeches and throwing little lines out there and jokes. One of these jokes didn't really fall very well with Americans. This was at the very beginning of the last campaign that he lost. But this is a joke that he gave credit to Winston Churchill for, and it was a little off color.
As Winston Churchill said, though, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing after exhausting all other possibilities.
Yeah, that one didn't land very well with the American audience at the time, but of course that was at a time when everyone's elbows were up. The liberals were doing that, and conservatives need to win liberal votes, so they went completely anti-American for that campaign. That didn't work out because they didn't get elected at the time. But now he's out there. He's now finally trying to reach youth in Canada, and so he goes out and he's out there in Toronto talking to the youth. He's trying to get them rallied up, and he's talking about the things that are important on the campaign, such as this.
He promised that he would change everything. In fact, everything is getting worse. They tell us, though, they're just about to do all of these great things. That's the just about party, right? They remind me of the student you all know who is just about to stop procrastinating on that essay. Next week, he's going to stop procrastinating on that essay. Or it reminds me of when we used to go to the student pub at the University of Calgary, and there was that sign on the wall that said, "Free beer tomorrow." So you showed up tomorrow, and it still said, "Free beer tomorrow." But tomorrow never came, and beer prices would just keep going up and up and up.
And that's exactly what's happening in Canada. Well, who do we have to blame? Well, we have the government that the Canadian people elected into office. Now, not all Canadian people elected that. I have to make this caveat because it'll really get people angry if you don't make the caveat. But this is where we get into the new territory of where he's going to tell this tale. And I'm just going to throw this one in here right in the mix. Here's Joe Rogan on joke thieves.
And the problem is that, I used to say that about joke thieves, that one of the real problems with joke thieves is when they get caught and then they have to write their own material. And the problem is they don't understand the language.
Ooh, they don't understand the language. Yeah, well, we'll get into it. What is the language that was spoken here? Let's have a look.
It reminds me of the lady who got married for her fourth time. And as she was leaving the wedding hall and driving with her new husband to the hotel, she said, "I'm feeling a little bit nervous." He said, "Why?" She said, "This is my first time being with a man." And he said, "Well, how is that possible? You've been married 3 times already." And she said, "Well, each of my prior husbands had a condition. My first husband had a heart condition. And so when we got back to the hotel room, he got so excited that sadly he died of a heart attack. My second husband had an eye condition. And so he didn't see a tree as he was driving back to the hotel, and he hit it and didn't survive the crash." And the man said, "What about your third husband? What was his condition?" She said, "Well, he was a liberal." And so every night he would just sit at the end of the bed and promise how good it would one day be.
That's pretty funny. Hey. And then he moves on. He doesn't give any credit to where he got that from, because we've got it here. We've got it right here. Here's the late, great Ronald Reagan, who was very famous for giving jokes. In fact, he was a jokester. Even on the campaign trail and in the debates, he had this to say. This was great because they called into question his age as he was getting older in this.
Mr. President, I want to raise an issue that I think has been lurking out there for 2 or 3 weeks and cast it specifically in national security terms. You already are the oldest president in history, and some of your staff say you were tired after your most recent encounter with Mr. Mondale. I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
So he was sharp, and he was always witty and about his wits, and this was one of the jokes that he told while he was president at one of the galas. This might sound familiar to you.
A story about a woman who walked into a bridal shop one day and told the sales clerk that she was looking for a wedding gown for her 4th wedding. Well, the saleswoman asked, "Just exactly what type of dress are you looking for?" "A long, flowing white dress with a veil," she responded with assurance. Not totally convinced, but afraid to offend the woman, the sales lady said, "You know, dresses of that nature are usually more appropriate for brides who are being married for the first time, for those a bit more innocent, if you know what I mean." Well, the lady retorted and put her hand on her hip. "I do know what you mean, and I can assure you I'm as innocent as the rest of them. Despite all my marriages, I remain as innocent as any first-time bride. Well, you see, my first husband was a dear, sweet man. It was a terrible tragedy, actually. All the excitement of the wedding was simply too much for him, and he died as we checked into the hotel on our wedding night." "I'm sorry to hear that," said the clerk, "but what about the others?" "Well, my second husband and I got into a terrible fight in the limousine on the way to our wedding reception. We haven't spoken since and got the marriage quickly annulled." "What about your third husband?" asked the store clerk. "Well," the woman replied, "he was a Democrat." "And every night for 4 years, he just sat on the edge of the bed and told me how good it was going to be."
So we all get the joke. It is the identical joke. I don't know who's writing the speeches for Pierre Poilievre. If it's himself, that's just ripping off jokes from the former president of the United States. It's really ironic, though, that it's right now that it's in the news that Ronald Reagan has been, plagiarized. It was actually something that was brought up by Donald Trump. And in fact, it's the reason why an extra 10% tariffs was put on the country. And that's because of the propaganda that Doug Ford put out on behalf of the people of Ontario, and by default on behalf of the people of Canada. But here we are, we're getting Ronald Reagan back into the news. I just wanted to throw this one out for you before we go to the live stream. We'll see you in a bit here, going into a live stream at 5:30 Pacific time. That's 8:30 Eastern. I'm gonna be doing a short one this evening, so tune in while you can, because I'm going trick-or-treating with the kids in the pouring rain. This is gonna be a fun day, but tune on in, get on in there, and we'll see you at that time. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.